How are y'all today?
Hi.
Hey, Vivian. Hi, Purple. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I look great. Your hair looks laid. The colors
Thank
are beautiful. I
thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you. Yay. We're
Oh,
live.
I know. I'm super nervous because this is our first time doing it, but I'm sure that this is going to be a lot of fun. And I hope that the folks joining in get something useful from this.
Yes. Thank you so much. A lot of people tuning in.
I know. So I'm super excited. Should we give it like another 3 minutes or so before we like launch into this so folks can
Yes.
get have time to arrive? That's so cool. Me too, Erica. Me too. Oh, let me see. Maybe I can put our pen. Someone, does this work? Like if I say HTTP colon backslash.
Hello, hello. We're going to be talking about Topa, Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. Stay tuned. Talk about housing rights, how to house, how to prevent gentrification and displacement through Topa.
There we go. Can I pin that?
Yep, beautiful.
Oh, it's gotta have a link. All right, so we're learning as we going. That's how it's happening. But
Love it.
man, this is so cool. I want to wave to everybody. This is so dope. Thank you for joining us. I know it's like 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. We
And
just survived Monday, but here we
I
are.
love it. They're here for it. I love it.
So honestly, I used to be kind of afraid of Instagram. If you check out my personal Instagram, which I'm not going to tell anybody, like I have not posted a picture in like a year. You know what I mean? It's been a while. So doing social media now is like it's kind of fun. It's like new for me.
Topa. You got
Hey
this.
Angie.
Thank you, people, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're so excited to talk about Topa, talk about who we are, what we're doing. I know I'm on the Women of Color Sister Collective, and you're like, why, Purple, are you talking about Topa? But I want you to all learn a little bit about what I also do aside from the Women of Color Sister Collective and how Topa aligns and why it's important to talk about Topa.
I'm so excited. Honestly, like the first time I heard about Topa, um, was not too long ago, but I had, been talking about CLTs for at most, maybe like a year and a half now. I'm new to it too, but it's just so exciting and to see how quickly it's happening right now in LA shows me that there is room for growth here and that we can really use these tools that we have that just a year ago I was learning in class with like, folks at Trade Tech, you know, community members who wanted to get organized. Like these are things we can do now. So I'm excited to see people like rise up to the occasion.
Yeah, tell us, Matthew, a little bit about what you're doing, who you are, like how did
Oh,
this come to be? I think we could get started. Folks are arriving.
yeah, no, let's do it so we can stay on time and respect people's time. I know it's 6 o'clock and I got therapy at 7, so lucky. So, I mean, welcome everyone officially to our first installment of Topa Tuesdays with the Los Angeles Community Land Trust Coalition. And in the series, we're going to be talking and exploring how hella people like you and me are fighting for access to affordable quality housing and how we're taking back power away from big corporate entities and big money and asserting our right to self-determination in our neighborhoods. I'm really super excited for us to be in this work. I'm Matthew Vu. I'm the Trade Tech Policy Fellow at Trust South LA. And I'm an organizer on the Los Angeles Community Land Trust Coalition with Purple, and Purple is so amazing. It's so amazing. But like about me a little bit. I'm nervous. So,
You
but
got this, Matthew. You're badass.
man, I'm the queer son of Vietnamese refugees, originally from the Bay, and I've been out here in LA for 6 years now. And you know, getting here has been a journey because I feel like when I was younger, I had very visceral reactions to injustice, but I didn't know how to explain it. And then like because of that, I started doing like charity and volunteer work. But then when I went to undergrad, I got to be a part of this program called Summer Bridge for non-traditional students, you know, students of color, first gen students. And that provided me a whole new lens to get into ethnic studies, to get into the Cross Cultural Center and the Student Affirmative Action Committee. And now I was, you know, I had a whole language to understand the systems that create the unjust, you know, the unjust things in this world that made me feel that I had a visceral reaction to. Of course, you know what I mean? Like you and me, I feel like when we see something wrong, we have a bodily reaction to it. There's nothing we can hold about that. That's why we do what we do. Um, but like, you know, at UCSD, I felt like I was just like, you know, in this bubble, separated from the realities of what's going on. And I had to go through life and go through a lot of struggle myself to sort of like to make that connection between theory and praxis. And so I found like when I moved out to LA, I moved out for a job that really kind of exploded me and like threw me out. And I felt like I had to start over, and I didn't know it, but when I moved here, I would be housing insecure for like 4.5 years. It was only recently that I was able to finally get secure housing, even though I was working like two, three jobs. Never able to like have secure housing, always like in precarious situations, not knowing like if I've worn my welcome thin with this friend or not. And if you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
it was it was not a way I wanted to live. I didn't feel like I had that freedom to pursue things that would benefit me because like imposter syndrome and like depression and anxiety, all this shit, you know, stuff going on is wearing me thin. And when I found my way into the community planning and economic development program at Trade Tech, and I got connected to Professor Eddie Torres, who was the first person to teach me about community land trust, where I met Professor Eddie Torres, who was, you know, teaching this class and saying on the side, hey, you know, like I'm organizing with tenants in El Sereno to create a community land trust and with reclaiming our homes. And I was floored. I was like, these are the, you know, these are just regular badasses amongst us who are doing things to change, to create an ecosystem that makes it easier for people like low income folks to actually be able to have secure housing and have some sort of reprieve and be able to like take all that negative psychic energy off of us and reinvest it into our communities. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I feel like now this entire journey I've gone through like understanding my visceral reaction to injustice, finding all the theoretical framework that allows me to negotiate the systems, and now I'm like able to tie it all together in something that is so meaningful and important, which is the right for all of us to have housing.
I love it. I love it, Matthew. And I love that you come with that lived experience because that lived experience is powerful in the work that we're doing and it ties together. And, you know, going and like getting more informed on like how to organize for the housing insecure. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things right now since COVID hit. A lot of folks, you know, lost their jobs, or a lot of folks who, you know, like with everything going on with COVID, you know, it's just been hard with rent. Trying to make rent and then folks not being housed. And I think we've seen a lot of that, and that has been on the forefront since COVID hit. And there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that still needs to get done. But you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy that we're doing this work with Topa because that's one way. That's one way that we can help. And I'm just really excited to inform everybody that's watching what TOPA is, which is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but we're talking about our individual stories. And for those who are just tuning in, um, you know, welcome. And, you know, we're going to really talk about this campaign that we're launching through the coalition. And yeah, I'll pass it back to Matthew to keep adding to anything that I may have
Oh,
missed.
wow. No, no, you haven't missed anything. I'm just like really thankful that we get to share it with each other because, you know, in between, we have Zoom meetings now, and we've sat in many Zoom meetings together, but like what we miss is kikiing on the side or like after the meeting's over and getting to know closer like the people that we're working with. So like I feel like this is one of those conversations that we get to have like because we've seen me me and Purple have seen each other a lot of Zoom meetings, but this is like, you know, I always knew you were the one. You have that energy. I love it. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
like um can you share with us your story about how you got involved with housing? Because I feel like when we talked about earlier, like we had so much in common.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you sharing your story in that way. You know, as you mentioned, we've been seeing each other on the screen, but we haven't even met in person, and we've been organizing together. And, you know, that's how things are right now. You know, everything's virtual. And healing work in the a nonprofit, and we worked with a lot of schools. I worked in education for a little over 15 years through the nonprofit work, which I
Nice.
absolutely loved, and I worked with elementary based students. And that's kind of where I started organizing. I served 2 years as an AmeriCorps member as a coach, and I coached students. And through the AmeriCorps program, you know, it was a lot of hours. I had to complete 1,800 hours for 1 year of service, and I served 2 years. And so, for those who are not familiar with AmeriCorps, it's kind of like the Peace Corps, but instead of serving in a different country, you're serving here in the States. And I served in Huntington Park and Southgate. And, you know, with that commitment, I had to do a lot of service projects, a lot of painting, a lot of like feeding unhoused folks, planning service projects. And that's where I really learned my organizing skills. I didn't grow up organizing. That came to me
Hmm.
as through my AmeriCorps member experience. And I really, really, I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, I found my purpose. I am here to serve. Like, I want to serve, you know, my community. I saw the impact that I was able to make through education and serving the communities that I was in. Um, and so in that process, you know, I ended up becoming, after my 2 years of service, I became a manager. And that's where I learned a lot of like the facilitation. And another area that I really love doing is facilitating. But in that process, I really missed organizing. I really missed doing service projects, planning out events. And so, in that process of, I was
Bringing people
also
together.
simultaneously, yeah, I was like simultaneously doing my healing journey. And I started attending Women's Circle. And I started attending Women's Circle at Corazon del Pueblo in Boyle Heights. And I came in towards the end. Corazon del Pueblo had been around for a very long time. It was ran by the community, but it got displaced due to high rents. So the community was
Ooh.
and they weren't able to afford rent, and so they were displaced. And you know, it was all donation based. Like nobody was getting paid. And so it was displaced, and then we didn't have a place to have Women's Circle. And at that time, I was attending Women's Circle. So then we went to La Concha, another sister autonomous space. And so when we went there, same thing happened. Like less than a year, we ended up getting displaced
Wow.
again. And I was like, what's going on? Like this was me attending for my own healing purposes once I had moved over to the East LA area by University Hill, um, in El Sereno area. And so we were on like limbo for a while. We even tried having women's circle at my house, and that kind of didn't really work because it just we needed a community space, and so we found another
Yeah.
community autonomous space, which is um, eh, Eastside Cafe, and that was like it. You know, we found our home. We found, you know,
Yes.
just everything about Eastside Cafe. Totally. My phone's about to die, so I'm gonna plug it in. But yeah, we found Eastside
Oh,
Cafe,
it's no
and
problem.
we're like, man, this is
Plug her
it.
in.
This is the space. And so once we found Eastside Cafe, we started, and it just, you know, we ended up just staying there. And I think we had like a year. We moved into Eastside Cafe. I want to say 2016. And in
Hmm.
2017, I want to say around May, we were on the verge of getting displaced again. A developer wanted to purchase the commercial space, all the mom and pop shops in the corner, including Nisei Cafe and the Here and
Yeah.
Now. And so we started like, you know, no, this is happening again. So a lot of the collectives started organizing to try to stop that, try to stop the developer. And that's when I was
Right.
like, I need help. I need support. I was just like, no, this can't happen again. And so the developer said, hey, if you're able to put a bid on escrow, I'll back out. I don't think the developer knew the power of community because we only had 10 days and he was like, all right, whatever, like 10 days, you know, we were
He thought
able
he
to
played
raise
you.
over two. Yeah, he was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. They're not going to be able to afford
Spoiler
this.
alert.
And yeah, and we were able to raise over $200,000 in 10 days. And like the community came through, and like we had a concert on the final day. We had like bands from the community come and play, and just all the support and love. We were very, very blessed, very fortunate, and it couldn't have been done without the support of the community because I'm telling
Yes.
you, there was people from San Fernando Valley, from Inglewood, from Santa Ana, from all over LA, coming down and saying like, oh, we got displaced, like telling us their story and saying like, here, I want to give money to your GoFundMe, and dropping off money and saying like, because at that time it was unheard of, like, oh, we're gonna purchase a building so we don't get displaced. Like, I don't know, we didn't make, like, you know, our mind doesn't process. And so that was the very first
We
time,
didn't know that
you
was an
know, that
option
like
even.
people, yeah, that it wasn't even an option. And I mean, we
It's
didn't
not
even
really on
think
the
it was an
map.
option. Yeah, we didn't even think we. And so it was really, really, really awesome. We ended up getting the space with the support of ELAC, and you know, it was really, really great. So once we got the space, we're like, okay, what do we do now? Like, we got a mortgage, and we didn't want to be like a landlord, you know, with the
Yeah.
mom and pop shop.
It's
So we're
that.
like, okay, what do we do? Yeah, we're like, we don't want this. This is not who we are. We're an autonomous space that's really has embodies a lot of the Zapatista principles. So
Yes.
then at that time, we started hearing a lot about community land trust. And so that's when we started investigating. So that was in I want to say October of 2017. We started really organizing and figuring out like what the land trust model. And
Hmm.
Eddie, your professor, he has helped with Eastside Cafe, and he knows a lot about community land trust. So he was
You
like a
do.
big part in like helping us. Yeah, he was a big part in helping us figure this
Shout out Eddie
out.
Torres.
Yeah, Eddie. And we got incorporated, I want to say, in like towards the end of 2019, and we're able to get some
Nice.
funding to staff us. So it was crazy
Yes.
because like when COVID happened, I had gotten laid off from my job. And I was like, oh crap, like like what am I gonna do? And I had a lot of
Hmm.
stuff going on at that time too. My dad was ill, and I had to really step back, and so I didn't work, and I took a step back from
Uh-huh.
organizing, from healing work, and just took care of myself. And I want to say in November, I started working for the land trust, and so that's where
Hmm.
I've been now, doing the work with the land trust and with the CLT, and also doing simultaneously work with the Women of Color Sister Collective. So like healing and housing. I know that May is mental health awareness month, and I mean, like,
Hmm.
it's all tied together. Like, if you don't have a house, like, how can you heal? How can it's a mental health issue. It's a human right issue. If you're housing insecure, like, it's a food justice issue. So it's really tied
Yes.
into everything. It's a systemic issue. And so it's a issue on capitalism, and it's all really tied. And so yeah, like the work that we're doing now with the community land trust, and especially now with Topa, and saying this is another opportunity to stop gentrification and stop displacement. I
Hmm.
skipped a little part where I was living on University Hill. I was living there for I want to say 8 years in a co-housing with other women. We were like a cooperative, um, and it was beautiful to live with other women. And I couldn't afford to live on my own. I'm educated, have a college degree, had a good job, still wasn't able to afford rent. To for my own place. So
Yep.
the best option was to live in a communal space, and we ended up getting displaced because of, again, like, we didn't own the house we were renting, and the landlord was getting hit up because that they were expanding the school. Cal State LA was expanding and building, and so it was marketable. And so a lot of the houses were getting flipped and sold for more, like $1 million. One of the homes there was being sold for like $1 million. And so we ended up getting displaced. It was horrible because we kept trying to look for places to live, and a lot of places
Hmm.
were asking for first month's rent, last month's rent, and a deposit, which ended up being anywhere from like 6,000, 7,000. We're like, how are we
Ridiculous.
gonna get?
Just
Yeah,
to get
I
in.
was like, it was crazy because there was people like that were like putting in, oh yeah, I'll put in cash now, and we were like, we don't have that kind of money.
Bro, I don't
Luckily,
have
we were.
$400 for an emergency. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
I
7,000?
was
You got me.
like,
You got the wrong one. It's not me right
yeah, I was
now.
like, no, this is not possible. And so it was really scary. It was really, really scary. I'm not gonna lie. And like, that's when it really hit me. I like, this is me, that I have a lot of privilege, and yet I'm still having trouble finding housing, and thinking like, how do like single moms do it?
Hmm.
Who are working minimum wage and have kids, and like are barely able to even make rent, able even to make, like, put food on the table. So for me it
Hmm.
was like really eye opening, and like, just I really like, I had a lot of support. Even though it was really scary, I had a lot of support, had community. I knew like, okay, well, worst goes to worst, like, I have my parents, I can go to my parents, they're not going to turn me down. But like, a lot of folks don't have those options. And so for
Hmm.
me it was like, once I was able to find housing, like, I really sat down and thought about it, and was like, okay, I have a lot of privilege here. How can I really help and support? And so that's the work that we've been doing now, is
Hmm.
figuring out. And this is where Topa comes in, and can
Yeah.
help and support those who are on the verge of being displaced from their apartment buildings.
Yeah, like if Topa was around your the cooperative of women that you were living with, that housing probably could have been preserved.
Yep.
Um, so I mean, to tie it all back to Topa, I have prepared some
Yeah, I love
slides.
it.
I have prepared some slides that you can access in our link tree that's pinned below. I also have it on our Instagram, instagram.com/topa for LA. and there are 10 slides. You can look at them through your leisure, or you can download them at our link tree. But this is supposed to break it down a little bit. And what Topa is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. And if you look at like ooh, I don't even know this technology. Hold on. I mean, like, we know the crisis is bad in LA, but I think one of the metrics that really alarms me is that LA is 66% renters, 33% owners. You know what I mean? LA has the lowest home ownership rate in every single metro in the United States.
Yep.
And the way that the housing market works, it's never going to be on our side as low income people. We're always going to get the short end of the stick in this equation in a free market. But what we can do is preserve housing and take it out of the free market through Topa and make that land available permanently for affordable housing or for economic development, whatever the community wants. We can do that with a community land trust. So, I mean, what Topa does, let me see, where do I begin? I'm so
Yeah, maybe
spooked
we
right
can
now.
start even talking about community land trusts, because a lot of folks that are
Hmm,
logging on don't even know like what a community land trust is. And I
that's a good
know,
point.
yeah, and then we can go into Topa because, even for me, when I started working for the community land trust, like I went
Hmm.
in blindly. I was like, okay, I'm trusting that community land trust, work, and I was learning the process of land trust. I had no idea even when we started doing the work with the coalition. And when we mean the coalition, there's five community land trusts. So when we say COTs, it means it's acronym for community land trust. So there's five CLTs that are working together right now in Los Angeles to do policy work,
Hmm.
um, to try to change, try to support with the housing crisis that is happening right now. So part of those five community land trusts in the coalition are Sereno Community Land Trust, our Liberty, our Trust South LA, our Fideicomiso, and they're on here.
Fideicomiso comunitario.
Yeah, Fideicomiso
Gee.
Comunitario Tierra Libre. There we go. They have a beautiful name. And then I'm missing one. I said and Beverly and Vermont. And I didn't even know that was like already CLTs that were already in LA.
Yeah.
I
Yo,
didn't
like,
even know. You
you know
know?
that slide 4 um entitled Not on Our Watch. That is the five CLTs operating as the Los Angeles CLT Community Land Trust Coalition.
And now
So,
there's even more merging community land
yes.
trusts that are merging. I was on a call. I logged on a webinar last week with Indigimama, and there was a speaker of a community land trust in Santa Ana. And I was like, whoa, they sound amazing. So
Okay.
I'm just like, I'm so amazed by how many emerging CLTs are coming up, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, stay tuned because there are so many emerging CLTs here in LA, and one of our goals is to make it easier for CLTs to get set up in your neighborhoods. So if y'all want to know what a CLT is, basically, a CLT is a nonprofit or an organization that is governed regularly, mostly by the tenants or the residents who live there, like maybe some stakeholders in the community, and maybe like people who fund or invest it, right? So what it looks like a lot of times, it's like mostly residents who are board members, a couple of people who are on the nonprofit side, and then maybe like someone else who is brings something else to the board, you know? But it's mostly residents who control what's going on, whether to like buy new buildings or turn it into what kind of ownership, right? Limited equity or just co-ops, you know? But basically this organization separates the land from the building, the land cost from the building. And so the land is owned by the community land trust and they lease it out to people who live on top of it. And basically the purpose of that is so that when you remove the speculative cost of land, like the location cost, then the cost of the housing is relatively small and affordable. And so the community land trust model is to remove land from the speculative market and make it permanently just flat base cost for housing or for whatever enterprises on top of that. Does that make sense? Did I say that okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's also different types of community land trusts. There's a community land trust
Mm,
that preserve land. There's community land trusts that are using it for affordable housing, which is what we're
mm-hmm.
doing. I don't know the rest, but there's a lot of like really like pathways to radical home ownership.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's really awesome. I'm still learning.
Well, I think one of the examples that kind of sold CLTs for me was I was examining data after the Great Recession of 2008, right? And CLTs have existed in the US actually since like the civil rights era. I think by Charlie and Shirley Sherrod. Excuse me if I'm saying it wrong. But basically, um, they created the first community land trust for Black farmers in Georgia. And this model was was created so that people could have ownership in places where individually they would not be able to have ownership. This collective ownership, right? And so that model like has expanded across the US and now we have the opportunity to continue those principles in our community, right? Like if I feel like one of the things a lot of us is common is like developers have so much money and sway that if some historic building gets knocked down for condos, we expected it. You know what I mean? What are we going to do? And community land trusts give us an opportunity to determine the kind of development we want to see in our community. Gives us more power than these corporations that you know what's happening at City Hall with all these like developer money coming through and people getting bought up. This is a way for us to assert power at a community level. So it's really exciting that we have this opportunity. Ooh.
A lot of really good work is coming out of the community land trust, and I urge people to get a little more information on it. But also, we're gonna have another town hall. I know we had a town hall in January, but we're gonna have another town hall to inform people a little more on community land trust. So stay tuned on that. And also, um,
Let us know what you want to see.
yeah, yes. Let us know what you want to learn about, and like even with Topa, we just finished our town halls, but we're going to be doing more work
Mm-hmm.
on that and that campaign.
Yeah. So just mindful of time is 6:35. Um, let's like maybe 10 minutes tops so
Yeah.
that, but real quick. Okay, so what TOPA would do. TOPA is a legislation that would empower CLTs to have more ability to get property and protect people by removing housing from the speculative market, right? Right now, CLTs, like, it's a great idea in concept, right? If the entire block could be preserved by a CLT and everyone's housing could be affordable and everyone could build equity together, that sounds great. But how do we put it to scale? And basically, to do that, we need resources. And so TOPA is creating an infrastructure that allows us to be able to accumulate property and preserve it from the speculative housing market. Okay. So what it is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. When you're building multifamily home, or if you're living in a single family home owned by Invitation Homes, like when your owner wants to sell that property, you have the right to make the first offer now. They have to let you know, number one, that the house is considered, or the house or the apartment or the building is being considered for sale, you have a chance to organize and you have a chance to make the first offer on the building. Topa would allow you to do those three things as soon as you know that the building is about to be put up for sale. So now you, as tenants living in the land of corporate landlordism, you have a say in what happens to your building. They can't just move us around like pawns and expect us to go with like, like, oh, we sold the building, your rent's going up $200. No, that's out of the question because we have the opportunity to buy that building now, right? And so Topa would then establish a network of resources to connect us to housing experts, advocates like ourselves who would be able to navigate the process for you, to be able to get connected to finance, technical assistance, and see if buying that building is worth it for you. And if y'all can do, if we can do that, then Topo would allow us to just buy that building and get it out of that nasty cycle of predatory housing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it would be owned by the people. It wouldn't be owned by a corporation or a landlord, that is,
We would be our own landlords.
Yeah, we would be our own landlords.
So
I
like,
love it.
yeah, and so like it's so cool. Like being a tenant or being someone who's been housing insecure, like sometimes you don't have the best options, and you do with the best that you got. And sometimes it feels helpless when people who have more money than you are playing games with your safety, your shelter, like your living space, right? So Topa immediately empowers people who used to have no options into something that is positive and helps build wealth and helps build like a stronger floor for our community. You know what I mean? Like in 2008, the Great Recession, like CLTs back then, like houses that were in CLTs were less likely to default or be foreclosed on, like 10 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On top of that, like people who lived in CLTs, like if those homes were like if accounts were delinquent or people were about to be foreclosed on, they were also like way more likely to cure that so that they would be preserved in their housing. And during this time, like people are able to build equity, paying like similar to what they would do in rent. So a model exists for us to be able to have collective ownership where we live and to build wealth that doesn't rely on big banks, Chase or Bank of America or like these other institutions. We can build wealth amongst ourselves.
Yeah. Folks are asking, how can I best support Topa as an individual right now?
Period.
Yeah.
So right now we have three things that you can do. You can sign the petition. If you're with an organization, you can talk to your board about endorsing Topa for LA, and you can tell three friends. And so the link below on our link tree has all of the links to the petition, the endorsement, and also the slide deck that is on IG. And
And
so,
then
like,
someone asked, how can we get involved with the Topa campaign?
contact us on our like DM, slide in the
Topa
DMs,
LA.
or you can go to our website topaforla.org, also available on our link tree, but right below.
I love it.
Um, but yeah, I know that this was kind of quick about it, but we want to hear from you. So if you have questions, more specific questions, if you want to, you know, information or like, handouts and things like that, like talk to me, talk to
And definitely,
Purple.
yes, and definitely stay tuned. Topa Tuesdays is happening this month. So next Tuesday, we're going to have someone from Fideicomiso Comunitario Tierra Libre, Fanny, who's amazing. She's an amazing organizer.
Yes.
She is awesome, and she's going to log on. So follow Topa LA to stay informed. Definitely log on to Topa Tuesdays so that you can stay informed. And then just stay tuned. We'll have more information, more beautiful information and town halls on, like, what is Topa and what is community land trust and how you can support. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Oh my gosh. Ah!
Yeah.